Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Objective brought to you by the Ayn Rand Center UK. Today, I have the pleasure of co-hosting this episode with the man behind the scenes mostly, the man rarely seen in front of the camera for some reason or another, because he's fantastic in front of the camera. So I don't know why he doesn't do this more often. Razi, there's a lot of buildup here, so you better actually fill the bill. The Dark Lord Emperor himself, the man behind the scenes, Razi Ginzberg. Please, a round of applause, everybody.
Thanks, Mark. I was planning on doing the bare minimum, so after that intro, I don't know how I can get away with that, but...
Well, speaking of bare minimum, this is exactly what we're talking about. There is a thing now that is becoming a trend in industry called Bare Minimum Monday. It's the latest workforce trend hitting productivity. This is sort of an offshoot of another kind of movement that seems to be running rampant in industry called quiet quitting, where people do as little as possible just to get by. They're prioritizing something other than work. They're prioritizing, well, their health and well-being. Not a bad thing, not a bad priority to have. But actually during the time that they're on the clock. So that sometimes means coming in late because they're, interested in putting on enough facial cream or getting their meditation points in or their jogging in before they actually come into work. So work is taking a smaller portion of a person's life. I think there are reasons for this that are not necessarily good, even though I see the other side of the coin as well. It's pretty good to sharpen the saw. It's good to focus on aspects of your life that don't have anything to do with work, but have to do with self-improvement. These are certainly good things, but this is part of the non-aspirational culture. It is a rebellion against hustle culture, which is sort of the opposite perspective, which is about do as much as you possibly can in the time you have. This is do as little as you can in the time that you have and spend it, finger painting, listening to music, or doing things that generally make you feel sort of fuzzy inside. Razi, tell me about this. Do you know a little bit more about this than I? And what is your impression and thoughts with respect to what this movement forebodes in the future?
So I'm not sure I know that much about it. I read the bare minimum article on fortune.com, but yeah, you said it's a rebellion against hustle culture. It's a rebellion against the self. I mean, you are, you choose to take a job. In most cases, people, sometimes you get headhunted, but usually people apply for a job. You choose to take it. It might not be what you dream of doing for the rest of your life, but it is what you're doing at that given moment. And to be in the place where you are, where you chose to be, where you have a contract with somebody that you provide services and they pay you for those services. Yeah, I think it's very sad. It's not selfish in the way that we advocate for here.
Now, in what respect? Let me push back a little bit on that before you go on to the next point, because at least the article made it seem like the focus is the self. The focus is just on other aspects of the self, right? Self-care, which I think that, this seems to be as old as time itself, the idea that work isn't self-care, that work is sort of in opposition to your life. It's something you have to do in order to put bread and onions on the table, but as far as enriching your life, it's a big nothing. And so in their minds, they seem to be focusing on that big something that work doesn't satisfy. Now, what say you to that?
Yeah, it would be selfish if the work-life balance idea was not a false dichotomy. Self-care that doesn't, that's in separate to or in addition to work is perfectly valid. And we live in a time where you actually have that time, like regardless of what job you have, you probably have more or almost as much spare time as you have, as you're working. We don't plow the fields 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have this thing called a weekend where it's 2 whole days off every 7 days. Out of every 7 days, we have many hours of every work day off. So I don't consider it a valid dichotomy, and therefore I don't accept this as something selfish. I do want to say there's definitely, in objectivism, we say that you should find your central purpose, which should be productive and so on. And you're not always there. Like, it's not a starting point. And there are definitely jobs that people have that are not what you want to do for the rest of your life. Like, when I hear about, unpleasant jobs, I remember when I was in my 20s and I worked in call centers, and that was definitely not something that I, enjoyed doing. But I would sit there and I would think, is this something I want to do for the rest of my life? No. Is it something I really want to be doing right now? No. But it is what I'm doing. It is, I am here. It pays the bills, and it is an activity that I'm engaging in. And I would, give myself challenges at work, trying to do more. We would have certain quotas we would have to meet, and I would try to, I would impose increased quotas on myself, because that's where I was at the time, and that's the activity I was engaged in, and the way I choose to engage in it says something about my view of myself. So I definitely disagree with.
What does it say about your view of yourself?
It says that if you choose to take on an activity, you take it seriously. You don't, you're so I'll give more of the call center example. So I wasn't doing sales. I was doing customer satisfaction surveys, and you would call people. This happened to me quite a few times when I would call somebody and I would say, "Hello, can I speak to Mr. Smith?" And the response I would get would be something like, "Fuck you," and like not knowing what I'm calling about, and they would hear the phone slam and think the person probably broke the phone. And some people would react to that when it happened to them with, they would like cry. And I thought, okay, I'm learning something about dealing with people here. So I think with every job and with pretty much every activity in human life, there will be positives, there will be lessons, and that's the approach that I would take, rather than, okay, I have to be at this place for 8 hours a day to pay the bills, so I'll just sit there, I'll do whatever I need to do to not get fired, and spend the rest of my time painting my nails.
So it seems like, are you familiar with the Garden of Eden story in the book of Genesis?
Yes.
Well, that reflects something I think that I find to be a dynamic that saturates our culture and has for many, 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 many millennia. And that is a sense that work is in conflict with joy. It's in conflict with happiness. It interferes with your life. It's something you have to do, but shouldn't have to do. And how do you? You sort of hinted at it in your suggestions of the way you approached your own work, which I find sort of a stoic, very interesting, almost Buddhistic attack on work. How do you get people to orient themselves around work in such a way that they consider it a reflection of their own self-esteem, a reflection of their own value, a reflection of the way in which they choose to attack life or take in life or better themselves or be aspirational? So how can you tie it to self-esteem? Because people don't seem to tie work to self-esteem.
Good question. I mean, I would recommend that they read the Fountainhead, but beyond that, it is very much. I kind of feel bad for their bosses, because if you have somebody, but then again, you also choose the people you hire, and then you choose to keep them on or not. But if an employee has this approach, they not only see work as something that's in conflict with their life, they'll inevitably see their employer as somebody who's in conflict with their life, that they'll end up, resenting their boss for asking them to do what they have chosen to contractually obliged to doing. It's. I don't have the answer. I mean, I have the answer, which is read the Fountainhead, but
Well, yeah, you're not a bootlicking capitalist, or you don't have your nose up the bum of your boss by actually aspiring to work well. What you're actually expressing is your own sense of goodness and self-esteem. You're expressing your virtue, your focus, your capacity to live and work in the world. It has nothing to do with other people. It just has to do with what I am doing at the present time. I'm going to do with to the best of my ability, as opposed to people who go at life half consciously. That what these people are doing in their act of rebellion is just saying, I refuse to lead a fully human life, because a fully human life is a conscious life. It's a conscientious life. It's a fully rational life. It's fully rational as you can possibly be. So they're actually, it's a rebellion, as you said, I think at the beginning very accurately, and maybe we're getting to the elementary pieces of it now. It is a rebellion against their own humanity. It's a rebellion against uh, humanness as such. Yeah, and reading the Fountainhead will give you an idea of what it is to pursue values wholeheartedly, and what that does to the self-esteem of a person, and what it does when you don't do that, when you become the person whose life is sort of determined by what everybody else thinks and does, and that would I think incorporate these bare minimalists. In some respects, they're rebelling against other impressions and other people, and not holding their own self-esteem as a high value.
Yeah, and by the way, if you have a job that you not even necessarily hate, but just don't see it as what you're passionate about, you shouldn't spend, too much time painting your nails or whatever it is that people do when they do the bare minimum. You should spend it on pursuing, as soon as possible, a career that you would love, because yeah, spending 40 hours of your week on something that is unfulfilling is a recipe for for disaster in the long term. It's there's a sort of compound effect, which is you will become more and more miserable, and um yeah, the longer you go on in such a job, the more it is your fault, because
This seems to be sort of a symptom of the paternalistic government ever encroaching on our lives and taking over our moral agency. There was a time with, irrespective of how poor you were, you moved to make your situation better, and you took jobs that were sometimes dirty, but in order to improve your economic station and continue an aspirational life. Nowadays, less and less people move to change their life. They expect life to come to them. They expect happiness to come to them. And so they sit and paint their nails at their desk rather than doing their work, thinking that somehow happiness is going to run into them. What do you say to that? Do you think that's an accurate assessment of the sit down and wait for life to happen kind of phenomenon that this represents?
yeah, wait for life to happen and blame the rest of the world when it doesn't. That's that's pretty much it, because
You're such a
you
hard
are.
ass. Where's your compassion for people? Don't you see they're suffering? They're unhappy. They're in jobs that they don't like.
Yeah, I see
Don't
the
you?
suffering of the boss who has to deliver results, and his employees are painting their nails.
Lately, I hear people like Sam Harris and some philosophers of his ilk, progressive philosophers, even Steven Pinker, claim that empathy is the most important thing a person can feel, and you can see it guide all of their policies and thinking. Empathy for only one type of person, the person that they consider to be on the low rung, or on the bottom of an oppression scale. What do you think of that? Do you think empathy is the most important human emotion, and or the source of virtue?
Uh, I don't think it's the most important. I think it's an important one. I haven't ranked actually human emotions in terms of yeah, how important they are. But no, I'm pro empathy. I just think it's probably often misused, or people expect so again, if you're there are differences between how somebody got to a situation that is far from ideal. And I think in most cases, with a job that you don't love, it is mostly on you. And yeah, and again, still you should still do the maximum and then move on to something you love, and you'll then be used to doing the maximum.
What a novel idea. Your boss isn't responsible for your life, you are. And doing the maximum is actually for your own well-being, not the company's well-being. Yeah, so if you find yourself in this situation where you are inspired by your colleagues to do the bare minimum or to quietly quit, tell your colleagues they don't like themselves, because that seems to be the case with folks who do this. So I don't encourage it. I encourage you to do the maximum, be aspirational, because it's about you. It's about your life and your happiness, and doing things well feels good. It just does feel good. And there's a reason for it. Do we have any super chats? Because I know we got a sort of a hard out. So let's get to the
we
super
have
chats.
A few. First of all, it's not a super chat, but Robin, who is a member of the channel, asks where the Razi emoji is. At some point, I will give in and we will have an emoji. Thank you, Jeff Bannister, Regina, Jonathan Honig, who says more Razi. Well, my name is spelled with a capital R, so once you get that right, I'll consider it. But no, I will be appearing from time to time. We have another super chat from Catherine, and a super chat from Ali, who asks, does this article talk about abuse in the workplace from the employee, employer, and clients? Bare minimum there is understandable too. No, I don't remember that being a part of it. But I mean, abuse is a reason of, well, you need to define what you mean by abuse, but actual abuse is a reason to, for loud quitting, not quiet quitting or bare minimum. If you're being abused, do not stay at your workplace. That's my take on that.
Yeah, I'm not for passive aggression in cases like that, where somebody's abusing you terribly and you decide not to work or to sabotage quietly things. I decide to get right up in their grill and say, you're sort of a dick. I don't want to work for a dick. And I think I'm going to go. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Ali follows up with mistreatment. Mistreatment can be mental and physical, stuff like that. Yeah, I agree. And I guess with mental, it's kind of, a bit more vague sometimes, but it is a real thing. Physical, it's pretty straightforward. If you're physically abusing somebody, that's what that means. And yeah, but besides not staying at the workplace, I think you should also press charges. Bonnie with another super chat asks, when do you stop doing bare minimum then? Dead end. Yeah, I mean, if you've accustomed yourself to this approach to work, I think this is something that will you'll carry on in some way, and you will find reasons, even in a job that you enjoy more, to not do the maximum, to blaming the world is an approach to life, not just an approach to a specific job.
I think that's a very important point. I think Aristotle said virtue is a habit. Well, so is vice. Both are habits. And if you ingrain the idea that the bare minimum is sufficient for you, you're going to carry that bad habit all the way through your life, and you're going to get very little out of pretty much everything. So be aspirational. Being aspirational is a mind towards committing yourself to virtuous behavior, and being virtuous is doing the best possible job you can given your context. And that's what that is the job skill that you're going to take over to every single job you have. And that's why you should be aspirational in everything that you do to the best of your ability.
Yeah, and Robert Naser says in the chat, life's too short to be miserable for 40 hours a week. And I completely agree. And I one of my favorite stories from Robert is when he said, I think he said this on the show as well, that he used to work in fast food and he loved it. He made it something that he loves. So yeah, and I can see that, there is any job that you're in, you can actually find the positives in, even if you are fully aware and fully working towards the day when you no longer work there.
Look, there's a saying in acting called the magic as if. And the concept behind it is if you behave as if something, you will actually have the experience of that something. And if you behave as if you love your job, you will find yourself as attentive as one who loves something, as attentive and detail oriented and immersed as someone who loves something. And you will find that will give you an experience, the experience of happiness and fulfillment and joy, even in the most menial types of tasks. Don't underestimate the power of commitment to good. It's good for you. It's good for you. And don't underestimate the power of non-committal, the power of pushing away. It'll give you the concurrent feelings of alienation and disappointment and unhappiness. All right, it's a chicken and egg concept. With acting, you have an experience. In life, you have an experience. If you reject doing, you're going to have that experience. So keep that in mind, folks.
We have another super chat. Kiana says, is not doing much at work due to mental health count as quiet quitting if your production on good days is usually above average? And she adds, hi, Dad.
Hey, Kiana. No, I'm not going to let you off the hook with that. I think you're very talented. I think you kick ass on those good days because you have it in you. And I think you can do even better on the bad days as well. Probably better than most people in your workforce. I recommend pushing ahead and going forward, even if it makes you a little bit tired. And get 10 minutes on the exercise bike today, please. Thank you, dear.
I think that's a very positive note on which to end, even though I know it will seem like we're doing the bare minimum on this Monday episode of the Daily Objective, which is shorter than usual.
Not by much. 4 minutes.
And of course, we are not done for the day here on the Ayn Rand Center UK YouTube channel. We have HBTV with Harry Binswanger coming up today, and his guest is Jean Maroney. The topic is emotions and clear thinking. So if anybody wants to super chat and ask where empathy ranks on the list of most important emotions, that is the show to do it on. Thanks again. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody, for watching and for the super chats. And we'll see you back on the Daily Objective tomorrow.
Peace.